think we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a lot to go over today. Just wanted to welcome everyone to our webinar. This is Envision's College Success Program. This is our webinar networking, building your confidence and professional opportunities. I'm going to ask everyone to please stay for the duration of the webinar. You will have the opportunity at the end of the webinar to ask questions, at which point you can go off of mute at that point or put it in the chat. My name is Katie Otaggio. I am the Engagement Operations Manager for the College Success Program. So before we get started, I just want to give a few housekeeping items. Questions, like I said, will be during the later part of our time together. Please utilize the chat box or use the raise hand function. If you are on a PC, it is Alt Y, and on a Mac, it's Option Y. If you're joining from the mobile app, it is under the More button. And at that time, when we do the Q&A, we'll call on names of those hands raised, and you can unmute yourself and ask your question at that point. Again, my name is Katie Otaggio. I am a female with longer-ish shoulder length brown hair. I'm wearing glasses and a black sweater. I want to introduce you today to our speakers. First, we have Maureen Hayden. She is a CSP mentor and is our moderator today. Maureen has a BS in marine biology from the University of Rhode Island and an MS in biology from Walla Walla University, and is currently pursuing a PhD in marine biology from Texas A&M University. Her doctorate research focuses on learning more about the impacts of plastic pollution on Texas beaches and marine life. Maureen was born with retinopathy of prematurity and has no vision in her right eye and is legally blind in her left eye. In her free time, Maureen enjoys playing her trombone in both symphonic band and orchestra ensembles, going scuba diving on the weekends, and spending time with family and friends. She's excited to share her experiences with blind students in higher education and to empower the next generation of blind persons pursuing STEM careers. Next, we have Khadija Bari. She is the Director of Placement Services in the Workforce Development Department at Visions Services for Blind and Visually Impaired. She is also a trained speaker and member of the Board of Advisors with Respectability. Khadija earned her master's in economics from Hunter College of the City University of New York. She then began her career at Queens College of the City University of New York, working with first-generation college students in their learning in freshman and sophomore algebra and calculus. The next step in her career advancement led her to Visions, switching her focus to the professional development of college students and job seekers with visual impairments and other disabilities. And she partners with companies to foster inclusivity in their workplaces. And last but not least, we have Richard Rueda, who is the Digital Content Manager at American Printing House for the Blind's CareerConnect. Richard has worked in the field of human and social services, specializing in blindness and low vision since 1992. He began his professional career in 2001 with the State of California's Department of Rehabilitation as a senior vocational rehabilitation counselor. In 2005, Richard stepped into the statewide role of transition coordinator, where he worked with students and staff at the California School for the Blind, as well as hosting summits and transition forums across California. Since 2010, Richard has worked with well-known nonprofits in Southern and Northern California, including Junior Blind of America and Lighthouse for the Blind, where he continued to organize, implement, lead, and influence pre-employment transition services, residential and non-residential programs. Relocating to Sacramento in 2015, Richard joined Society for the Blind to develop Careers Plus, a one-of-a-kind transition program for youth, young adults, and families. In 2020, Richard joined the American Printing House for the Blind's Connect Center, where he manages CareerConnect. Presently, he continues to collaborate with agencies for the blind and disability organizations seeking consultation on promising practices in the pre-ETS transition field. Richard also participates on committees and boards of nonprofits advancing wellness and social justice for blind and underserved populations. He is a 2001 graduate of California State University of Los Angeles, where he holds his bachelor's degree in vocational counseling. And with that, I will hand it over to Maureen, and we will get started with talking about networking.
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm really excited about today's session, especially since within the past 6 weeks or so, I personally have attended 2 in-person conferences, which meant networking opportunities for myself. So I just put some of these skills into practice. So my name's Maureen. I'll be your moderator. I am in my late 20s and I have one brown eye, one blue eye, and I have long brown straight hair. And today I'm wearing a maroon shirt for Texas A&M maroon colors. All right, so the majority of what we're going to be talking about today focuses on networking. And there are a lot of scenarios where networking can come into play, but basically today we're going to be focusing on in-person events. So this can be career fairs, conferences, virtual, workshops. So for example, like a lot of places are beginning to open back up with the pandemic kind of winding down. So with these in-person events, even if they aren't quite in your area, let's talk about how to prepare for them so that you are ready when they come about. So
and I'm
first,
on now, Maureen. This is Richard. I'm here.
Oh, hi, Richard. All right. So let's imagine we are going to a networking event, say, for example, a career fair or a conference, for example. What are some things for our panelists students can do to prepare for these types of events?
I can go first. This is Khadija. Hi, everyone. As Katie mentioned, I'm the Director of Placement Services at Visions. Just a quick description of myself. I am a woman of South Asian descent in my early 30s. I have a medium to deep skin tone. I have a long, dark, straight hair, which is tied back today, and I'm wearing a black sweater with a bright scarf. So Maureen, thank you for that question. I think I'm just going to go over some basics as well. I apologize for the background noise. I'm currently working out of the office today, so there's others as well. So I think I'm just going to start off with the basics, and I think it's always a good idea to have a refresher on the basics. First of all, dress to impress. This doesn't necessarily mean you have to dress uncomfortably. That's something I always advise to people. There's a few pieces that I think, whether you're an early professional looking for your first job, or maybe you're still in college looking for a professional internship, I think you should still invest in a few key pieces as part of your professional wardrobe, whether you're male or female. I do recommend at least having one good suit, like a matching blazer and bottoms, whether that be dress pants, skirt, whatever your preference is. I think there's definitely value in that, and that there's a certain element of looking put together in that sense. Again, you don't have to feel uncomfortable. So for the ladies or those who associate as female who maybe are not totally comfortable wearing heels, a professional event or an interview or a career fair is definitely not the first time to try and do that. You can totally wear flats, that's totally fine. And I think something else, again, just to go into the details of having part of your professional outfit is investing in a darker colored professional looking bag or folder, something you can keep documents in. So when you pull it out, it looks nice, neat, you're prepared, and you're serious about your internship search or your job search. Another quick recommendation I would make is having a resume. So you could take a visit to your career services office, or if you have another mentor that you can reach out to look over your resume. It's always a good idea to have somebody look over your resume before you start handing it out to different companies at networking events or conferences. Always advise that. And I think another quick tip I would like to give is having a business card. So you don't necessarily have to have a job to have a business card on you. You can actually, even as a college student, have a business card with your college name, your major, what your standing is, sophomore, junior, senior, perhaps your GPA, things like that. And it's very affordable to do that. There's companies like Vistaprint who do it in a very cost-effective manner. I think another quick tip I would give is an elevator pitch. So whether that you go to a conference or you go to a job fair, career fair, any kind of networking event, you will be, at some point have to introduce yourself. So it's always good to have an elevator pitch already set up, a quick, I would say like 30 to 60 seconds of who you are and what you're looking for and what your ambitions are. Richard, if there's anything you'd like to add on.
So I just want to make sure the question was about networking or presentation.
Hey, Richard. So the question is, what are some things students can do to prepare for networking events?
Okay, I cut out for a second, so I apologize. Thank you, Maureen, and thank you, Khadija. Yes, and good afternoon, and thank you for the question. My name is Richard Rueda, and I am with the American Printing House for the Blind Connect Center, and I am a Hispanic male, short brown hair, wearing a sweater this afternoon, and some of the things that students can do to prepare for networking events, and Khadija covered a lot of that, the preparation, how you present yourself. And I think to speak beyond that is to know your audience, know what events you're aiming to network at, to put yourself out there, whether it's for interviewing and or just meeting people, going to events to further your career interests. Having, like Khadija said, your resume, having an opportunity, a quick way to take information down that's being given to you, whether it's a business card on paper or having just a conversation where you want to take a quick note, like I need to call this person back or communicate with this person. There might be opportunities. Having a way to take notes and take them efficiently and succinctly, and having that with you, whether it's something on your person, a braille note taker, a phone, and something quick, and knowing the questions to ask, knowing who's going to be there, maybe even going in advance to the venue where you're going to be networking, and mapping it out so you have some orientation to the event, you have some sense of where things are at. When it goes to presentation, again, when it comes to your wardrobe and looking at your presentation, maybe having someone who can be your pair of eyes to say, hey, is this tie on correctly? Do I have too much makeup? Just having someone to give you a quick visual look over to say, hey, yeah, you're looking good, or maybe you need to apply this, or your tie is crooked, or whatever that is. Or hey, there's a stain on that shirt that I failed to capture when I ironed, and that happened to me, Richard, the other day when I was preparing for a conference, and had I not had someone look at it, I would have packed that shirt. So again, I think those are some of the things I would apply when preparing for networking events.
Thank you so much for those answers. So it's not only important to prepare for networking events with our wardrobe and our business cards and our resumes, but sometimes just even the thought of going to a networking event can be a bit overwhelming. So what are some tips or suggestions you have for students to kind of get out of their comfort zones at these networking events? For example, some of these might be arranged in a way that you walk into a big exhibit hall with just like hundreds of tables, and that can be a bit overwhelming. So how can students get out of their comfort zone when they're networking?
Well, this is.
Oh, go ahead, Richard.
So yes, and exhibit halls are often a part of events where you're networking, where you're learning what's out there, and finding, maybe again, when you come into the room, if you can get a hold of someone and say, hey, can you give me a quick layout of the room? Is it a grid? Are there diagonals? How many rows? So if you get a sense of what the room is set up like, it gives you an orientation to the room. And then you can say, okay, I choose to start here and I'm going to work my way down these rows. Or maybe I'm looking for agency X, Y, and Z. So I don't need A, B, and C. So maybe I start here for the agencies and the organizers and the venues I want to visit to get information. So be strategic about how you want to start your event networking so you get the important things out of the way first. And if you get to go to all of them later, great. So maybe by prioritizing and strategizing in advance, a lot of this is all advanced preparation and planning to be on your game when you're there at the event. And then when you're at the event, if you are in the middle of the hall and you're like, hey, I want to go to agency X, they're not down the row and maybe they're closing in 15 minutes. Can you, vendor X, tell me the best way to get to vendor Y or Z? Because they'll have some kind of a layout, or they'll be able to get you directions or get you someone to walk you over, if you will, to that event table. And those are some of the things I would apply to getting and maximizing my time in an exhibit area.
Thanks, Richard. This is Khadija. So I think just to me personally, also being an individual with a visual impairment and networking with employers and developing those partnerships is a huge part of my job. So I actually also frequently attend networking events as part of this process. So there's some things as a visually impaired person that I try and do in advance before showing up to the event, just to make it as easy for me as possible. For example, things like double checking transportation, whatever my mode of transportation may be to get to this, to have a plan A of how to get there. And myself being in New York City, sometimes public transit doesn't necessarily work the way that I had hoped it would, and there's service changes, and also having a plan B of how to get to my destination. Another piece of homework that I do is a kind of what Richard mentioned earlier is knowing your audience. So for example, if you're going to a job fair or career fair, knowing who the employers or the companies that are going to be present at the event. So usually if it's an external organizer outside of your university, this information is, I would say, 85% of the time available to you once you register for the event of who's going to be attending. And I think that can make it easier for you to do your research and really also target your own time at these networking events to make sure that you're making the most use of your time when speaking to these companies rather than just having aimless conversations or something very random. And you want to make it as useful to you and to them as possible. Another piece of recommendation, again, sort of what Richard said, is in terms of the layout of the room. If you are a college student, so just check in with your career services office or your disability services office, depending on your particular school. Sometimes they provide a guide if you need. And they can also provide like a map of the room of which employers and which tables are going to be where. So definitely useful as well. Another tip I would give now, given how trends are evolving in terms of networking with COVID, being more contactless. I've seen some companies now at their tables having QR codes versus handing out business cards and brochures physically. So they'll just ask you to scan a QR code to get either access to their contact information or their job application or internship application. So I think if you could just be familiar with your technology. Richard mentioned note-taking, very important as well. So again, knowing your technology, what is accessible to you, and things like a QR code scanner on your phone, being familiar with how to use those things rather than being stuck last minute. The nice thing about a job fair and a career fair is it's not a real interview, right? Although you have the chance to speak to an employer, it doesn't have the added pressure of, oh my gosh, I'm being considered for a particular position, and I need to perform a certain way in order to secure it. So I think, so that added pressure is gone. So it gives you the time to ask the right questions to get an overall idea of what the company is and what they're looking for. And you don't have to have the answers, right? The person you're talking to should have the answer. And the point of a career fair is to network and to collect contact information. And like I said, with the whole trend of being more contact less, ironically, if let's say the employer doesn't have a business card on them physically, but you would like to stay in touch with them, I always recommend, even if paper and pen is not the most accessible to me, I'll figure out a way to make it accessible to myself later. to have them, or you can have them either type out their email address on your phone or write it down on a paper and pen. So always carry a paper and pen, I would say, to a networking event, just in case. Thanks.
I would also argue that a lot of networking events are typically themed towards a type of career. So remember that you're all there because of a particular interest. So engineering or biology or teaching. So you all already have a shared interest, and that's a great place to start a conversation if you aren't always quite sure where to start, if you're having a little bit of trouble feeling uncomfortable. All right. So with our next question, we're moved on from preparation to the day of the event. What are some things to keep in mind as we start connecting with people in the room?
As you said, if you wanted things to work, you'd make things work.
I think we kind of mentioned these, but what are some things we want to keep in mind when we start connecting with people in the room at networking events?
This is Khadija. I can go first. Some things to keep in mind. Yeah, I think we addressed a lot of it. So once you actually start interacting with people, Maureen, is that what you're referring to?
Correct. Yes. Once you've begun an interaction or a conversation.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So again, I know COVID has changed some things and different preferences for different people, but if you're comfortable with a handshake, take some hand sanitizer with you. If you're comfortable with a handshake.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I would say you can be the first one to initiate it. Again, someone with a visual impairment, I personally can't see if someone has a hand extended. So rather than just leaving them hanging, I sort of take an initiative to put my hand out and introduce myself across the table, sort of just to get the conversation started, rather than them seeing me with a cane. I personally use a white cane, and perhaps, sometimes people on the other side of the table, the employers are not sure, should I try and connect with them? Can they tell I'm trying to connect with them? It's a busy room, it's a loud room. So you can always take that initiative if you're comfortable doing so and say hello. And my other recommendation would be at a career fair or job fair, if you're able to arrive towards the start of the event, generally that's a time when it's less crowded. Let's say the event is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So my suggestion, again, I try to do this myself, schedule allowing, is to arrive towards the start of the event. That way it's not too crowded. I have more time with the companies. It's easier for me to navigate the room. It's a lot faster for me to navigate the room because I don't have to wait in line for my turn. So that's another suggestion I would make.
Yeah, and those are great This is Richard, and I agree with a lot of that. I think, as Khadija said earlier in the earlier question, is have your elevator pitch ready. Know what you want to say and how you want to sell yourself to that prospective employer or whomever you're networking with. And again, yes, I agree. The handshaking thing is kind of an awkward thing right now. I mean, today at an event earlier, we were like, so are we handshaking, or, what are we fist bumping, or are we just waving? So sometimes you can just kind of say that playfully and see what the reception is, because we're in that kind of in between right now where it depends on where you're at and what your comfort level is. And in having the elevator pitch, but also I think building yourself up, going back to being just before you walk in the door, have a pep talk with yourself, kind of build yourself up, because you are making that first impression, even though it might not be the formal interview. You want to make an impression so that, like, hey, we met this really cool person. Yeah, they had a white cane, or they had a dog with them, or whatever the case might be, or they had glasses, and, are we hiring people with disabilities? And just making a really strong impression will go a long way. And then just getting yourself in the door, getting yourself around, and making as a solid first impression to all the prospective tables you're visiting as positive as possible, and gathering information, picking up business cards so that you can follow up with, hey, I'd like to learn more about this position or these positions. What are the next round of interviews, and those types of things. So those are some of the things I would also employ on the day of.
Richard and Khadija, speaking of conferences, a couple of things. So for me and my vision specifically, I've been told that what I consider direct eye contact is not actually like straight on eye to eye contact for others. So I've had to like tell people that during interviews. And then like I stare with like a quote lazy eye. I is what I've been told. And then also a lot of networking events still utilize name tags, which I have a strategy for that. But I wanted to hear your answers about eye contact and name tags when interacting with people at conferences and networking events.
This is Richard. I can take that. I think when it comes to eye contact, yeah, we may not all be able to make eye contact, but put in your best effort to steer your face towards the voice of where that person is coming from, and say, and just making your best effort, being attentive, being intentional, being focused and authentic will go a long way. And I think whether you handshake or not, but you make that effort will speak volumes. And with name tags, you can say, hi, Maureen, my name is, hi, and I'm speaking to you, Maureen. Hi, I'm Richard, and your name is, and just explain, I can't see very well, or I can't see your name tag. I'm blind, I'm low vision. Personally, I like to stay away from the word visually impaired. It kind of has a negative connotation, negative in my head. So I like to say blind or low vision. That's how I identify, because I am low vision, but I am legally blind, so I can interchange them in my view. And just say it out front. And if they become uncomfortable, that's their problem, not yours. You're still trying to make as best impression as possible.
I say I prefer traditional introductions.
Right.
Right. This is Khadija. I mean, I totally agree with Richard. I think when you introduce yourself, like Richard gave that example, it's a very natural reaction, actually, without even giving the full explanation for the other person. Like, hi, I'm Khadija. Nice to meet with you. It's usually a natural reaction for the other person to also introduce themselves by their first name. So that's generally how I tackle the name tag issue. And if it doesn't come up, I will grab a business card and be able to refer to it later. And again, having your own organization system in your bag, in your pocket, whatever it is, of people that you're really connected with at the event and you want to stay in touch with. So I think there's a few different ways to go about it. I think besides the name tags, you can also, a similar strategy can also be implemented when you're, again, you've done your research about what companies are going to be at the event, or you want to approach a certain company, or you're standing in front of a table and you have no idea what company this belongs to. Again, sort of the name tag strategy is going up and saying, hi, my name's Khadija. I'd love to hear more about your company. So usually, again, when they're describing the company, they identify the name of the company in their introduction. And let's say you're waiting in line, you haven't necessarily reached the table yet. Like Richard said earlier, there is a certain level of confidence that is needed for this. So asking maybe a fellow attendee who is also in the room, like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm low vision, visually impaired, whatever term you choose to use. Could you just let me know what table is right there in front of you, what company that belongs to? So there is a certain level of confidence that it is needed to navigate a space, I would say, independently.
You're not the only nervous job seeker in that room, blind or sighted. That's for certain. So.
Oh yeah, everybody's in the same boat as you.
Yep. I agree with Khadija. I'll just follow up. I mean, yeah, asking a fellow attendee, say, hey, are you walking in this direction? Maybe I can follow along with you for this table, and you can, it just pal up with somebody when it feels natural, not to become dependent on them. But if it feels like you're making a connection with an attendee, maybe you can partner up. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but you don't know until you try. And maybe you strike up a conversation with that person. Maybe they're in the same, like it was said earlier, there might be a theme or a specific job fair that you're at. So you're in the same field with similar jobs. So you can connect with an attendee who's looking for work like you in the same field. So you might strike up an acquaintance that way. I think They say, Maureen, it's 70% of the jobs that we get are through networking, through word of mouth. It's not, the cold calls. It's often, hey, Khadija, there's a job open at Visions. You might want to apply, versus, hey, I read that in the phone book or in the classified somewhere.
Or found it on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we've been talking a lot about what we should do and how we can prepare, but have you ever seen anything or done anything at a networking event that you would try to be cautious of, or maybe a behavior or phrases you would perhaps avoid altogether?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Again, this is observations. Again, when you're waiting in line, you're watching other job seekers, other internship seekers, students go up to the table, do their rounds. I've noticed this sometimes. And again, as a person who approaches a table not necessarily knowing what company I'm talking to, I see some people say sometimes, oh, I'm actually looking for an office job. I don't think you're the company for me. I find the statements like that a little disrespectful to the recruiter that is there. Honesty is great, but saying you just wasted my time, goodbye, is a little rude. I think a nicer way to approach that is, oh, it's so nice to hear about that. Thank you for your time. Is there a brochure or something I can grab to refer to your website and apply online? Honestly, they're going to tell you to apply online. FYI, nobody offers you a job at a job fair. They tell you to apply online. Just a heads up. So they're probably going to end up with that result anyway. But if you feel like, oh, this is not a company or an opportunity of interest to you, rather than saying, oh, I'm actually not interested in jobs like that, I would just say take a more polite approach. And I think since we're talking about networking in general, not just career fairs, the types of questions that you ask would depend on the type of event. So let's say it's a conference where you have more of an extended time with your other audience members, or even maybe a few minutes during break, like 10, 15 minutes to speak with a guest speaker or whoever would be hosting that event. The types of questions you can ask are a little bit different versus if you are at a career fair, you have like valuable, maybe 60 seconds of conversation to have with a recruiter. It's before the next, I don't know, 10 people behind you need to speak to them. So I think you should definitely take that into consideration. Again, going back to what Richard said, who is your audience? And how much time do you have with your audience to ask the right questions for you?
Yes, Khadija, there's not a whole lot more that I can add because the good stuff. I think knowing that you've got only so much time. So again, maximizing your time there. Don't oversell yourself. It might not be an interview, but you want to have that pep talk. You want to be confident. You want to be ready to go, but you don't want to be cocky or arrogant. Oh, I can do that, or I can do that. And don't, like Khadija said, to be disrespectful to the recruiter. Really engage as much as you can. Tell me more about the work culture with your agency. What keeps people employed there, and really be really authentic as you can be. And I think that'll resonate with them. The more active listening you give and genuine feedback you're hearing, then it'll help you make a decision. Is it a corporate culture? Is it, we're expecting, is it really, revenue driven? Is it social service? What kind of, employment you're looking for? And do you like that culture? Do you thrive in it? Or do you think it'll be a disincentive for you to work there? So know that. And also know when you have your communication skills. Know you're talking to recruiters. It may not be an interview, but you still may be nervous, and know your nervous tics. How do you communicate? Do you say yes, you like, or those types of things? I do so many mock interviews.
You play with your earrings. Do you twist around with jewelry? Should you not wear? Like for me, I know when I go to interviews, I actually take my rings off, because otherwise I will like nervously tick and play with them, and it's actually very distracting.
Yes.
So yeah, that's like one of those don't do's. Also, wear comfortable shoes. Don't wear shoes just to look nice. You should wear dress shoes that are also comfortable. You're going to be on your feet for a while.
Absolutely.
All right. What else? So, okay, we've gone to the networking event for the day or multiple days, however many days. And now you have all these business cards, all these brochures and pamphlets and notes and, you know, QR code things saved on your phone and all these great resources. And I mean, I need to take a day to rest, but what's next? Like, how long do I wait to reach out to these people? Do I send emails? Do I do phone calls? I mean, what's next?
This is Richard. I can do that. So let's say your event's on Monday. Tuesday, you sit and organize and you prioritize who you want to connect with and follow up with. And then Wednesday, no later than Wednesday, you start communicating with those businesses that you wanted more information about, you want to network with, you want to internship with, you want to work for, and you send out your resumes. You say, thank you, recruiter, for being here. You send a little thank you note by email, you attach your resume, whatever you agreed to at the event, or here's, you know, or beyond applying online. And Khadijah's right. A lot of these jobs are online applications, but if you can make an impression digitally and or learn more about them on LinkedIn, that's another way to really get your foot in the door and to make an impression, because they're looking at tons and tons of resumes all the time. So any extra step you can go, don't wait more than 48 hours in my book.
This is Khadija. I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit less generous than Richard. I'm going to say within 24 hours. I actually attended a presentation by a LinkedIn representative once, and they said within 12 hours.
Wow.
And so I think it depends, but my general recommendation is 24 hours. There's a way you can go about this, right? So it depends on how much homework you did. Going back to the first couple of questions in advance. Let's say you've not only identified the companies, but you've also gone to their career portals and identified relevant opportunities. Number one, that could make your conversation very fruitful during the actual career fair, that you actually went on their website, found relevant opportunities, read the qualifications, and you're taking this as an opportunity to actually pitch yourself as a candidate rather than just gather information. So that's a strategy you can take toward a career fair, which I think is quite productive. Secondly, let's say you have done this homework in advance of relevant opportunities, and if not, maybe you can want to do it in the next 24 hours after the event is done. So not just to randomly email your resume to the contact info, whether it be on LinkedIn or email, whatever it is, to the person you spoke to, but to also add to that opportunities that you are qualified for. I actually found these opportunities on your website, and I would like to be considered for these positions. Or that you spoke about the role at the event itself, and you're sending a reminder. And of course, in the follow-up, you always want to thank them for their time. Sometimes maybe you don't find a relevant opportunity, or maybe the company's not the type that they post their opportunities online. Sometimes you have other formats of recruiting candidates rather than just posting on their own career page. So you can take that as a chance to still share your resume, thank them for their time. And I think, again, that method of organizing that I mentioned earlier, if there are some conversations, like you felt like this conversation went great, they showed a lot of interest in me and I showed a lot of interest in their company, keep those business cards in like a separate pocket or something where you can be like, these are the people I definitely want to follow up with, definitely want to connect with, keep the conversation going. Like Richard mentioned, LinkedIn, schedule like a quick 10-15 minute Zoom coffees or Zoom sessions with these individuals if they're willing to talk more about specific positions or about their company culture, things like that. Again, just depends on how much time you had to chat about these things at the event itself. So that's another suggestion I would make.
Say if you happen to be at if you're at a conference specifically, sometimes these can go on for 5 to 7 days. And if you happen to, Richard said, find a, not only network, but kind of buddy up with that person. And for example, I was networking to go to grad school, which to look for PhD positions. And I wound up networking with people at a scientific conference and then taking the students of potential PhD advisors' labs to lunch. Like I would ask them like, hey, you want to go to lunch with me and like tell me all about your lab and your job and like if you like your job. So you may not get the employers themselves, but you might be able to go to lunch with like people who work for the company or something and like pick their brain. So you know, think outside the box too when it comes to doing your homework.
Anytime when you have an opportunity to socialize and offer food or caffeine to someone, people are going to be, oh yeah, let's do it. Or I've got time Tuesday at noon. Let's do it. So I agree with that. I think if you can engage them and invite them, it's possible opportunities that you want to take advantage of.
So I know mostly this session was about in-person networking, but with so much merge of virtual and in-person opportunities, I definitely don't think virtual networking events are going away anytime soon, and are going to stick around for a while. And additionally, I think there are other types of networking events as well. So what are some other ways that students can network in addition to in-person and virtual events?
I can go first. This is Khadija. I think a few recommendations would be applicable to everyone, regardless of their disability status. Like we spoke about LinkedIn earlier. So again, having somebody from your career services office or a professional mentor having, taking a look at your LinkedIn profile for you, make sure your photo looks good, things like that. Your content looks good. There's several LinkedIn resources available online for you to reference if you're in the process of creating your profile. Your professors, your classmates, again, a very valuable resource like Maureen hinted to earlier. There's so many students that I work with who found internships by speaking to their professors, found research assistant opportunities for the summertime when they're not taking classes. And again, your classmates, if they're in the same major as you and the same classes as you, and if they're looking for experience as well, find out what places they're applying to and, throw your hat in the ring as well. Other, I would say Eventbrite is another, it's a nice website to find virtual events, in-person events in your area. For networking purposes, again, as Maureen mentioned earlier, if they're geared to work toward a specific field or a specific major, things like that. And again, the more disability specific resources, perhaps, I would say if you have a state vocational rehab counselor, I would actually consider them as a networking tool as well, because they can give you access to services such as the ones that I provide at Visions here in New York, that can also help you network, connect with other professionals, connect with work opportunities. So I would say also reach out to your vocational rehab counselors to find out what services could be available to you for networking and for getting work experience. And a shout out to Richard's program, CareerConnect, I think is also a great resource for people participating in the CSP program to make use of. And again, there's so many other organizations like Disability In that are again geared towards their audiences. Persons with disabilities, yes. Right? Yeah, exactly. So those are good tools as well to keep in mind.
I think
this is Richard. I would
workforce
add,
recruitment program. There's a lot of opportunities out there.
I want to add everything Khadija said. I can't say any better, but I want to go back to one thing. Actually, one other thing. The vocational rehabilitation counselor is huge, because I was a rehab counselor, and what I would tell people is go to your rehab counselor not for just I need help with this or I need purchasing this, but hey, you help work with people who are blind and disabled every single day. You've gotten people jobs. Put me in touch with people who are wanting to be accountants out there, people who want to be doctors and lawyers who've done it. I want to talk to that person as well and hear their struggles and their challenges. That's why we do career conversations like CareerConnect, because we link you up with people who are doing jobs from all walks of life, and you can informational interview them and really get a sense of, do I really want to do this? If you can't talk me out of it, then I'm meant to do this job. It is kind of one of the prerequisites. So I think we underutilize our rehab counselors. And the other thing to do is go to the consumer organizations, the civil rights groups, go to the NFB and ACB folks and ask to talk to blind people who are members, who are working, who can give you some advice on networking and who are doing the jobs you want to do. I think those are great connections as well.
Thank you so much, Richard. I definitely think informational interviews are a really great tool that work really well in tandem with networking. So with that, I will turn it over to Katie for moderating questions.
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, Richard and Khadija. Wonderful, wonderful answers. I'm excited to get this recording out to everybody too, because there are so many cool things that you said that I think more than just the people on this webinar would love to hear. So at this time though, we are ready to take questions. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. And we will, if you raise your hand, we'll call on you and you'll have the opportunity to go off mute and ask your question yourself. Or again, if you would rather, you can put it into the chat. So far, it doesn't look like we have any questions. Oh,
Yeah. Good afternoon. This is Patricia Jackson. I'm visually impaired, and I have been looking for jobs. I have been working for with TWC and the Lighthouse about this project 31. I don't know if you guys hear about that. Supposedly there is a internship. They are looking for internship for us who they are in the program. Has to be 31 people, and they're looking for small businesses here in San Antonio, like less than 50 employees, and local businesses, and they will pay for an internship for us. But so far, there is not a lot of people who wants to work with us, I guess. So if you guys know any businesses who want to give us an opportunity, you can talk to the Lighthouse or the TWC to let them know. And somebody mentioned about something about disability, something, I don't know, I didn't catch the name.
Disability in?
Disability, is it? Disability in?
IN, yes.
Oh, IN. Here in San Antonio?
I think they're a national organization. They used to be called the United States Business Leadership Network. Khadija, do you have more information about them?
Yeah, I think if you go on their website, there's a lot available. They have quite a few different corporate partners. And it's, you know, I'm not sure how long you've been waiting to get connected with an internship, but Patricia, if you have a VR counselor, I think they would be a good point person to speak to about this, since it sounds like you're referring to a local service provider in San Antonio. And of course, if you're working with the Lighthouse, I think you can reach out to them too to get an update. I know sometimes we get connected with these services, but then, you know, we're sort of just playing this waiting game and not sure. Follow-up is totally is totally acceptable.
Yeah.
If you would like an update from your service provider as to, hey, you know, what's the progress? What do you need me to do? Is there something I can help with? Or yeah. So I think your VR counselor and your direct service provider would be good points. But of course, there's other resources that we mentioned in the webinar today for you to access outside of the Lighthouse and your state voc rehab counselor.
Okay. Okay, because also I tried Disability SA here in San Antonio, but I'm not able to reach them. I send the messages and everything. It's been a little difficult. But thank you. I'm going to try Disability IN and see what happens. Thank you very much.
Good luck to you.
Do you know
Patricia.
any other organizations I appreciate to let me know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would
Thank
just jump in
Hello,
just to.
my name is David Aiken.
Yes. go ahead.
Hello. Yes, I am trying to get work from home, and one of the companies I'm trying to really get with, I haven't done yet because I have to have surgery in a few about a week or so. But it's called Concentrics, where they do work from home. Now, all day and I have a problem with my vision. I'm low vision. I only use my eyes, only work one at a time. And I was trying to get what is called an OrCam to be able to read for me because I can't do a lot of reading. And my PR counselor, I'm connected with the Commission for the Blind, tells me, okay, well, you can't have that unless you're working. And I told her, well, I need to get my GED first. Can I get that equipment to actually be able to see better, to read for me and everything like that? So do you know of any visual aids that are more comparable for a person that has a very bad vision problem?
Oh man, there's a lot of ways I can take that. I mean, if you have a huge disagreement with your rehab counselor, you could go talk to your client assistance program or whatever they call it in your state to kind of negotiate, like to better understand why they say you don't need that. If you've had a low vision exam or a kind of a technology assessment, maybe that'll help answer your question. Sometimes you just have to advocate. And I'm not saying you're wrong or your counselor's wrong, but you might have to kind of employ those advocacy efforts to really determine if this is what you need or not.
Yeah, I'm going to Commission for the Blind, School for the Blind, but I'm on a waiting list. So I'm just trying to wait for that waiting list to go there to get some disability training and plus some typing skill training.
Right.
And I'm trying to get them to get me, the computer and things that I need to be able to do what I need to do. And it's like they're like it's pulling teeth because, well, we can't afford this and that. I said, well, but I come to you to get the help that I need. If you give me the equipment and the things I need, I can accomplish what I need.
Hi, this is Khadija. I actually, it's funny. I was speaking to my team earlier about this challenge. I'm in New York State. I'm not sure what state you're in, but
South
I know
Carolina.
South Carolina. Okay, the rules are very similar around the VOC rehab agency purchasing technology. If you're currently not working, it is actually the same policy. Unless you get a job, they can't buy you technology. OrCam specifically, I'm actually not even sure if they will approve OrCam if you get a job. It's an expensive accommodation, and unless your job really requires it and the company that hires you really cannot afford it, that itself is a challenge for to convince your VR counselor to purchase OrCam specifically. In general, if you need access to a computer, if you're doing GED, number one, the study materials should be available to you electronically. Secondly, if you don't have a computer to access them electronically, there is a resource called Computers for the Blind, where it is not a free computer, but these are like refurbished computers, and they're a resource that we actually refer a lot to our clients who need a computer and don't have a job right now. So it's called Computers for the Blind. It's I think it's maybe like $500 or something. You get a computer, and they already have assistive tech like JAWS and Zoom Text and whatnot installed on it. So that they should have access to that. So if you're in a pinch, you don't have too much money to dish out, buy the assistive software, buy the computer. I would say that would be a good go-to. And
then the other thing is, I maybe you're right with Khadija. I haven't used Computers for the Blind in years. They used to be $125, or they used to be free many years ago. But also more and more Windows computers these days are becoming, available with built-in narrator and magnification, which isn't Zoom Text and JAWS, but it's something to get you started. And then from there, once you get more training, you can get more of the advanced assistive text, so, or a Mac with VoiceOver. So you can acquire those things. You can get them on marketplaces, refurbished and inexpensive, and these things are already built in many cases.
Yeah, because I tried Zoom text and it had a problem with it. I guess how can I explain this way? Because I have some vision, there's a fight to try to see, and then instead of if I were totally blind, it would be different. But because I have some vision, am I making any sense?
Yeah, you're making sense. And I think you mentioned earlier you're getting typing lessons already from somewhere.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're already. Yeah, so it sounds like you're already on a computer, you said?
All I need is the computer. I got the software for typing, typing teacher.
Right.
Which does really work very well, and I like that.
Right. So in terms of you mentioning that you have some vision, Zoom text is maybe not the best for you, or something. I think it sounds like you're already on the track to get the correct services to eventually, whichever instructor you're working with, to help you make that assessment of which software would be best for you based on your level of vision. It's a little hard to make a recommendation just over like a Zoom call.
The last thing, and this is Richard, the last thing I'll say before we go on to the next person is that many communities have independent living centers, and many of those independent living centers have assistive technology loan programs where they can loan you something out for a month and you can run that product and it might work for you. So look into that as well.
Okay, I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. I also wanted to mention, just kind of going back to where to find jobs and internships. Envision is, Envision the College Success Program through our social channels. We're regularly sharing Envision jobs and internships that are coming up. Envision has locations in Wichita, Kansas, and in Dallas, Texas. But the Workforce Innovation Center at Envision is also doing a lot of work to connect with organizations for job placement, organizations that are looking for remote workers and things like that. So there will be more information from Envision regarding those opportunities that will be coming out. So again, following us on Facebook and Twitter, it would be a great place to find those opportunities when they start coming out. We also have quite a few CSP mentors who are a great help with networking and connecting. If you're connected with a mentor, or if not, you can reach out to us. And if you have specific needs or specific industry that you're looking into, we can help you with connecting with someone in that field. So I just wanted to mention that there are opportunities periodically coming up through Envision. So to be on the watch for that stuff. We are coming right up to 5:30 Eastern time, and if we have at this point, I don't think we have any other questions. There's none in the chat. Nobody has raised their hand. So at this point, I think we will wrap up. If you do have any questions later on, feel free to reach out to us. We can be reached at csp@envisionus.com. And we will, follow up with all of that. And any questions that may come to us afterwards, we will follow up with an email after the webinar with the recording, and we can provide answers to those questions in that email as well.
Could you repeat the website, please, or the email?
Yes, I will put it in the chat. The email is csp@envisionus.com. And the website for the College Success Program is www.collegesuccessbbi.org. And I'm putting that in as well, so you can have that. So thank you to Khadija, Richard, Maureen. Thank you for your time and all your great insights and knowledge. It's extremely beneficial. And again, thank you.
Thank
Hope
you.
everyone have a great night.
Good night.